Hello friends, so today's video is going to be a list of some popular authors who I have never read any of their works, and I'm aiming to change that in 2022. Before jumping into who those authors are and what the books are that I'm hoping to pick up, a big thank you to Book of the Month for sponsoring today's video. I have worked with Book of the Month for a while now. I really enjoy their book subscription service. I was using their subscription service before I ever worked with them, and the way it works, although I'm sure many of you have heard me talk about it at this point, is that they have 5 different books to choose from 5 different genres every single month. All are always hardcover at a very affordable price, and this presents you with a bunch of different options every month to get a brand new hardcover. I love it for a number of reasons. One, a lot of my anticipated releases end up being Book of the Month picks, but also on top of that, I read a lot of fantasy, but I enjoy every now and then picking up something else, and I feel like Book of the Month helps me broaden my horizons. It's also great too because other people in my life have different reading tastes, and every now and then something that they might be interested in ends up being one of the selections. And speaking of selections, I have their 5 books for January as well as an add-on. Add-ons are great because if you recently joined Book of the Month and there's a book that came out a while back that you're interested in and they have it, you can add that in to one of your boxes for the upcoming month. New members can also choose the add-on that I'm going to mention as one of their picks. So if you'd like to join, I'll have a link so that you can get your first box for $9.99. These selections though, we have the book The Maid. The Maid is a mystery debut. This absolute charmer follows Molly Gray as she tries to solve the murder at her hotel before anyone pins it on her. Fiona and Jane is a collection of short stories. In these braided short stories, 2 girls come of age and learn friendship is both indispensable and a great challenge. Love and Other Disasters is a romance debut. This delicious queer rom-com proves that like the best meals, true love is hard work, a bit messy, but oh so rewarding. Reckless Girls is a thriller. These 20-somethings quickly learn island life is about the little things: strong drinks, soft sand, cool water, murder. Black Cake is brimming with wisdom. It's a moving story of 2 siblings who wend their way to reconciliation after losing their mother. Magnolia Palace is historical fiction. It's a rich tale suffused with intrigue, mystery, and betrayal that swirls around the history of the infamous Frick family. A big thank you again to Book of the Month for working with me on today's video. I'll have information for them in the description bar down below, but now jumping into some popular authors I've never read. First up, we have Octavia Butler. So there's quite a few different books by Octavia Butler I could have chosen, and I might end up picking more than one up in 2022, but the one that I'm definitely going to be prioritizing and making an effort to read would be Parable of the Sower. I know that this one has been talked about quite a bit. I mean, a lot of her works, because she's a popular author, have been highly praised and discussed. This is one, though, that has come up quite a bit recently because the events in this book are eerily similar to some of the things that have transpired over the last couple of years, and I think that that's going to make for a very poignant but kind of disturbing reading experience. And I'm not sure how I feel about it, but I am excited to finally jump into her works. I'm also interested in picking up Kindred. That's another one that I have. I have both the novel version and then the graphic novel, although I've heard that you should probably read the novel first. If any of you also have thoughts on not only Octavia Butler, but any of the other authors that I mentioned, feel free to let me know more information about them in the comments down below. But either way, Parable of the Sower, been meaning to read this for a while. I also have the one that comes after. From what I understand, it was intended for there to be a 3rd book, and it wasn't able to be written, but that you can read the 1st and 2nd, and it's not going to feel like it was incomplete. Again, I don't have all of that information though, so if any of you want to fill me in on that, let me know. Regardless, definitely need to finally pick up Octavia Butler. Next up is one that I was surprised that this author wrote this particular book. I was like, wait, is that the same person? And then ironically enough, this particular book is the one by this author I'm interested in, and I don't know how interested I am in their other works, and that would be Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green. So John Green wrote The Fault in Our Stars. I had technically picked that one up a while back, but I never finished it. I barely even got into it, and not because I thought there was anything wrong with it. I just didn't end up finishing it, is all it comes down to. But he writes a lot of contemporary works, and I don't know what it is. I've never found myself gravitating towards his works. I read mostly fantasy, and he doesn't really write fantasy, so that's probably what it is. But this ended up being, funny enough, a Book of the Month book, and it's from what I understand, a collection of information from some podcasts that he has done that go over, I'll read a little bit of what it says. The Anthropocene is the current geological age in which humans have profoundly reshaped the planet and its biodiversity. In this remarkable symphony of essays adapted and expanded from his groundbreaking podcast, best-selling author John Green reviews different facets of the human-centered planet on a 5-star scale. It also says it's funny, complex, and rich with detail. Either way, I am aiming to read more nonfiction this year, and I want a lot of the nonfiction I read to cover a lot of different topics, especially ones that I am not all that familiar with. So this one not only seemed like a good fit for that, but also haven't really picked up any John Green. Next up, we have a staple in science fiction, and that would be Foundation by Isaac Asimov. So I've heard very different things from people about this story. So my friend, she didn't really care for it. And then my husband's father likes a lot of other classic sci-fi a lot more. However, I have slightly different tastes a lot of times than my husband's dad when it comes to sci-fi. And then my husband actually really likes Foundation a lot. It's one of his favorites of the classic sci-fis, or just sci-fi in general. My husband tends to read a lot of literary books, and we don't always have a lot of overlap when it comes to our reading. But of the 3 people in my life that have talked to me about Foundation, I mean, we all have very different tastes, so I really don't know how I'm going to feel about this one, but I think I'm going to appreciate the themes and the way it's crafted, even though it's not what I typically find I enjoy. I know it takes place over a large time period. That's not one of my bookish buzzwords. I like a more intimate setting and time. And when you cover a large span of time, that's not typically up my alley because I'm character focused, and I know this is not character focused per se, but either way, I think it's one of those, it's more about the thematic aspects of the story that are what makes it a standout. So, yes, hoping to finally pick up an Isaac Asimov. So I was just discussing books that take place over a large period of time. So Daniel Abraham is an author I have yet to pick up. He is also another one that has written a lot of works, sometimes not always as Daniel Abraham, but regardless, he is quite popular. This is actually a bind-up of a couple of his works. So the first book is A Shadow in Summer. So the second would be A Betrayal in Winter. So they just call this Shadow and Betrayal. It kind of works out. This is quite a cool edition. I know I'm going off on a tangent here, but this edition is a floppy, very floppy, which I like. It's also quite tall. So even though it looks very short, it's got 2 whole books in it, which is great. But regardless, I have been wanting to read something by Daniel Abraham, and my friend Alan from the channel Library of Alexandria has spoken very highly of this quartet. It does take place over a large amount of time, but he has praised it for the way in which you see aspects of what characters have done playing a role in what happens later. And because you still technically are with those characters later, you're having to see them face the consequences of what has happened in the past, as well as there being newer generations who are also having to confront these things. And I do like that element to it, and I like that it's going to have a very epic feel to it, even though these books are not enormous, they're not Stormlight Archive length or anything. But Alan has praised the heck out of this story. He's great, by the way. I'll have him linked. But I definitely need to read some Daniel Abraham. I had this as a series that I wanted to devour in 2021 and just push through the whole series. I didn't obviously get the chance to do that. If I end up liking the first one, hopefully I can attempt to do that in 2022. Last is an author I have mentioned as not having picked up quite a few times. And I think this is the year. I'm finally going to read this one. I know my friend Jessie from the channel Jessie May also happened to have gotten this book recently, and I told her, I was like, hey, I feel like we need to buddy read this. And that would be Ocean at the End of the Lane. I have a couple other friends here on BookTube who are big Neil Gaiman fans, so I'll have their channels linked if you'd like to see some other Gaiman fans. Maybe you're one yourself. I have always been kind of nervous to pick up Gaiman because from what I understand, he has slightly more of an artistic writing style, and I tend to like adventure-centered stories or very character-focused stories. And the slightly more abstract or slightly more artistic can be very hit or miss. Sometimes it's done in a way that I think is beautiful and the best thing I've ever read, and then other times I'm like, ugh. So, I don't know where I'm going to fall. I'm hoping to fall on, of course, the, oh my gosh, this is the best thing I've ever read side of this scale. And I've just heard fantastic things. This is the illustrated edition of Ocean at the End of the Lane. I, for a while, was planning on picking up American Gods first, but a lot of people said that's really not the best one to start with. And then so many people seem to have a different idea of where's the best place to start with Neil Gaiman. And ultimately, I think I've heard enough people say this is a good place that I'm going to go with this one. So those would be the books that I'm hoping to pick up by these very popular authors that I have not yet read anything from. Let me know your thoughts regardless of whether they're on these authors, these specific books, or maybe even some popular books that you haven't had the chance to read or popular authors you haven't had the chance to read. But anyway, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to check out Book of the Month, and I will see all of you later. Bye.